You are listening to the Oneofus.net podcast network.
Oneofus.net has been your one-stop shop for all things geek for years. But there's a side to them many of you have never heard. The subscription side. Subscribe and listen to great podcasts like The Breakfast Pub, The Original Gentleman, and the Watch a Movie With Us series. Head on over to Oneofus.net and don't forget your towel.
Deliberations of Doom!
Doom
John
Patrol!
Carpenter Part 2!
Doom Patrol!
We didn't really discuss that Chris was going to do that at the beginning.
We did not.
Doom!
I didn't feel like I needed to tell you
We
guys.
should have.
Should I have discussed that first?
No, it's good, man.
No.
All right, so
just
if
go
you
with
listen
it.
to our Part 1 episode, we talk about John Carpenter, how he got started. We talk about his films Halloween, The Fog, and The Thing, which are definitely the three most talked about of his horror movies.
That
I
was
would
his
say,
upswing.
in his career.
Yeah.
That was definitely his, like, hey, I'm here,
I mean-
fuck you.
There's no downswing.
Summers Brothers.
All right.
Wait
but
until
now-
we get to Body Bag.
But now we kind of talk about what happens when things start to go maybe a little sideways in his career. And not to say there aren't some great movies that are going on here after this point, but, like, this is definitely the beginning of Carpenter starting to get, I think, disenchanted with the Hollywood system.
Yeah.
Would you guys agree with that?
I think it's after Christine, personally.
Well, all right. What's
well,
next?
Christine, speaking of Christine,
Christine's
that was
next.
Is that the next one?
movie.
Yeah, we're talking about
that's the next
Christine.
movie.
Own it.
1983. This was actually, I think, the first horror film that he took on as a contract job. This is not a passion project for him. Like, he just did this straight up because he needed the work. Because The Thing had bombed so badly.
Unbelievably.
Yeah,
but,
that he was like, he couldn't get a job. So they offered him, well, he was working on Firestarter.
Yeah.
And
Which
then-
his version obviously
And,
never
and I would like
Yeah.
to say, I would have loved to have seen a John Carpenter Firestarter.
I think he would have made a better Firestarter.
love-
he would have made a
Many people would have made a better Firestarter.
Save it
Carpenter's
for our
would have been
Stephen
actually cool.
King episode, because I love the Firestarter.
Whoa. Right?
Oh, the song? I love that.
Prodigy's the shit.
That's awesome.
I'm good with Firestarter. You know what? I agree. I enjoy Firestarter for what it
favorite
is.
Stephen King movie.
But I would like to have seen
Would
John
you rather
Carpenter.
see the one you have, or would you rather see the Carpenter one in your mind?
Well, considering I'm not the Summers Brothers, I would say I would keep the one I have.
I mean, it's a Stephen King adaptation when he was so big that they were working on the film before the book was even finished.
Yeah, it was even finished.
It was like Carpenter was taking it to make money because he needed it after the thing was, once again, still shockingly a failure. But, you know, it's gone up against Blade Runner and E.T. What are you going to do?
Blade Runner
I
wasn't a
think
big
that
hit
my
either.
fun fact...
Blade Runner was not a big hit either. Both those films weren't until much later. E.T. dominated the theater for like something like 2 months.
Yeah,
All
the
right.
thing had been made... Okay, we're done with
So,
the thing.
Christine.
Christine, fun fact, this is my favorite part, is Brooke Shields and Scott Baio were supposed to be the leads.
They were?
In Christine, which I think it would have been a much worse movie.
Yeah, I agree.
So wait a second, real quick. You guys did not like Christine.
I did not really care for it.
Well, I like Christine.
See, I actually like
Oh, yeah,
Christine.
yeah, I too.
I think it's mediocre.
I like
You're
it.
mediocre.
I am mediocre. It's true. I'm not arguing.
Quick, we're going to do a quick synopsis on this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about
oh,
me,
all right.
you, me,
Use
you?
your turn.
I'll do it.
Use your turn.
I'll do it.
Step up.
It's about a geeky high school guy who takes shop class and disappoints his parents. And one day, after getting beat up by some bullies on his way home with his best friend, who happens to be a jock, he sees a red Plymouth Fury for sale.
Yep.
And he goes, you know what? I need to buy this car. And his buddy's like, why? It's a piece of shit. And he goes, well, I can fix it. I'm in shop class. He goes and fixes it up and finds out the car's got a mind of its own and is possessed pretty much and evil. And it starts changing him, which has a great character arc. The guy starts off like a complete dork, and by the end he thinks he's James Dean. And loses his friends, and a lot of bad things happen. And in classic Stephen King nature, It handles childhood really well and bullies really well and trying to conform really well and what we hold precious really well. And to me, I actually really liked this movie. Yeah. And I thought it was shot well. I thought the intro was fantastic where you have this assembly line in Detroit and it's just like bland car after bland car. And then you see Christine roll up and she's just a bad bitch. You see her roll up and she's red and everyone's looking at her. A guy opens the hood and instantly just slams on his hand like it bit him. And it's fantastic. I mean, I liked it.
Changing the origin story from the book.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's not in the book.
The car wasn't evil until the previous owner, who is only referenced in this.
And some of the best
who is
stuff
a
in the
really
movie.
terrible person.
But what I like, though, is the old man who sells it to him. He's like practically half a machine. He's got like a back brace on this metal hole. There's a lot of thought in this. He looked like Blue from Old School. You remember that?
He kind of looked like
He looked just like Blue from Old School.
I'm going to just summarize this. Say, nerd can't get laid, so Satan gives him a car to fuck instead, which ends up fucking all his friends.
Yeah, I don't want to see that movie. That doesn't sound like a great movie.
One of my favorite things about Christine, and I'm a fan of this movie, is I think John Carpenter perfectly captures Stephen King's essence in that transformation from like this total loser, like nerd, gets bullied kid into someone who becomes the bully.
And it's definitely a Stephen King theme.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of movies are
very
like
much
that.
the Stephen King atmosphere, the small town. Because Russ was like,
dude pulled a switchblade.
Yeah, Russ was like, is this supposed to be the fucking 50s? Like when it started, and I was like, it kind of is. It's like that small.
It is. It's
town.
supposed to be like take place in like the early 70s.
In fact, what I thought was interesting about the movie that I didn't realize was the movie was released in 1983, but the film takes place in 1978.
Yeah.
And they make sort of a point of that. There's the Rolling Stones song, Beast of Burden, which is from an album from 1978, plays in the bully's car. Right. And then the years, they specifically mention what year they're in.
The costumes.
Right. So
and how long ago the car was made.
Right. It was 20 years from
It was like a 55 or
it's a 78.
It's a 78 and a 58.
Yeah.
And so they make a point of that, and I do think it makes a difference. The fashions, like all that kinds of stuff to it.
And I don't know that there's a strong need to do it. Like if you'd said in 83, I don't know if the movie would have been better or worse. But it is a choice.
Well, I mean, it was Stephen King, so, I mean, you couldn't go wrong making a Stephen King movie. I mean, they made
Well,
Cujo.
many people do.
Yeah,
Cujo,
for sure.
You know, and, I mean, like, how do you make a 90-minute movie about a rabid dog?
Let's be honest, though, as a director and just as a film fan, the fact that he pulls off the premise of a satanic car that kills a bunch of people and sort of possesses this one character's life at all.
You
like
say
makes that
pulls off, I go, maybe not really.
I think he pulled it off.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you have to remember, he's checked out right now. Like,
And it's beautifully shot.
I don't
beautifully shot.
Russ and all Russ and I talked about was like, I want to go back and just look at this movie and the way he shot it.
And part of my problem might be I've never seen this until like 2 weeks ago. I'd never seen
And
this.
the reverse photography of the car coming back together.
Oh my
That's the
God,
one really
it's
nice.
astounding.
Which they did by creating
Amazing.
a plastic molds from a car and then running it
Hydraulics,
with
right?
hydraulics to like suck it in.
Yep.
And instead they ran the film in reverse.
It's an amazing, amazing effect.
And there's some great lines there, like the "Okay, show me what you can do" type thing, and the car just starts saying, "Oh, we're in this together."
And a beautiful shot right after that line.
Oh, yeah. When the lights turn on and it's just back and it's that wide shot.
And
Oh,
I
beautiful.
mean, later in the film, when Christine shows up, pulls back into the garage, and it's just smoking as the guy
the
walks towards
car
it.
on fire, chasing down the dude with the switchblade down the highway.
Stunning imagery.
that was a beautiful
I mean,
movie.
it is pure filmmaking.
Yeah,
like,
and here's what I want to say. There was a terrible 80s version of this movie, like Firestarter or Silver Bullet, that... I know. And I like Silver Bullet, but it's
I haven't seen Silver
I'm really going to defend Silver
my
Bullet.
God.
No,
Wait,
when I saw Silver Bullet, I was 9 years old and it was the shit. I haven't seen it since.
But the point that I'm saying is there's
I
a
cannot wait till
bad
I see
version
the
of this
episode.
movie that Carpenter did not make.
Yeah.
Carpenter made a really great version of this movie. He really
know-
understood how to sell the concept, which is in itself pretty hokey.
Which at the same time, though, is why he made They Live. Think about like the premise where it's like about somebody who needs something to feel special. And you tap into that, and that's kind of, like the day live, about the marketing and about the things you need own you type thing. And this is the exact same thing. It's about a guy who needed the car more than anything
That makes
to
sense.
feel
It's
special.
weird
and he
because
tapped into that.
It's
and
like we're
the
talking
childhood.
about like he checked out, but I think of this
He
very
hasn't checked
much
out yet.
Right, and I think that this is a film that is very much a Carpenter film, and he even says like there's a lot of his themes, his cinematography, his direction, and honestly, watching it, I was sort of blown away by the John Stockwell, Keith Gordon, their characters'
They were
relationship.
great actors,
It's-
too.
Yeah, they're
great actors.
Well, not only that, but Harry Dean Stanton's in this, and it
Yeah.
has a couple terrific scenes. And the owner of, I cannot remember the actor's name, but the owner of the junkyard.
Or was it
has
Darnell's?
Yeah, Darnell's. He's terrific, and he has a couple great scenes where he tries to connect with Keith Gordon's character.
I think I know what scene you're talking about.
Arnie's like, well, I'll think about it. And
That's
he's like,
the best scene.
You'll fucking think
Right,
about
but
it.
you know what? But honestly, it
That's the
does
best
show you could cut that out of the movie. That doesn't need to be in the movie. As a director, I think like, is this?
Oh, that's a short film on its own, though.
Right, like you're like, I could cut. This doesn't need to be in the movie. And Carpenter leaves things like that in the movie. It shows what kind of storyteller he is. It's important to him, and I think like that's one of the things the movie really succeeds on is Keith Gordon and John Stockwell's character in an average film like some other 80s movie like Can't Buy Me Love, they're adversaries. He's the jock, he's the nerd. We're going to make that the conflict.
Don't you talk shit about Can't Buy Me Love.
Well, I mean, I love that movie. But
He's just saying it goes against formula.
it
though.
does.
I mean, it does, and it
but
works.
but in a more nuanced,
But
interesting,
that's
subtle
also
way.
Stephen King, not John Carpenter, though.
100%.
Yeah, but this is his movie, and a lot of other people would have played it a lot more on the nose, and I feel like he lets them act against each other in a really great way.
That's true.
And
Also, I have to say, John Carpenter obviously has a type. Alexandra Paul is in this movie. She looks great. She's gorgeous. She's a pretty good actress.
She's really pretty.
Goes on to do Baywatch Nights. How
Yes.
much? And I literally had to
So
close
much
my
Baywatch.
eyes, and I asked Russ, I said, wait, I'm thinking of something. Who is this? She sounds exactly like Kim Cattrall in Big Trouble in Little China.
Huh.
Like and so he obviously has a type. They're very similar. Their hairstyles, their look. Anyways, cool.
You know what's interesting too, though, is he shoots the car like he would shoot a Western hero or a Western villain too.
It gets a lot of
It's always like
backlight.
and then like the camera slow dollies in on the stillness and all. I mean,
The
it's very
cinematography
Western-like.
in this movie is some of his best.
I agree, and the grain in it. I actually liked the film grain.
I think
in it.
my
It looked
favorite
great.
quality
beautiful.
of this film, other than Alexandra Paul, who you can't not have a crush
Kelly
on after you see
Preston.
this. Kelly Preston as well.
Young Kelly
Is
Preston.
the way that like Keith Gordon's character Arnie, who is at the beginning like nerd, and by the end he's James
So
Dean.
cool. He's so cool with his leather
Yeah,
jacket.
he's like the car is
Wearing all black.
The car is turning him
Yeah.
into a '50s greaser.
Yeah, no,
as
he
it goes
is, yeah.
along, and you're like, wow. By the end, you're like, yeah, I gotta admit that.
He's like, what's the matter? You want a
This
drink?
guy's
Like, I
pretty
thought you were cool.
Like,
Like,
yeah.
I
yeah.
thought you were cool. Like,
The climax of this film is, I thought, pretty stunning visually, and Keith Gordon's ultimate fate and the way Carpenter stages it, I thought was really exciting. And actually, Russ and I were like, whoa!
And in that climax, the famous bulldozer scene, funny bit of trivia, Alexandra Paul has a identical twin sister who she, as a practical joke, had come on in the set pretending to be her during that sequence. So the actress you see standing on the bulldozer is actually her twin sister.
That's cool.
And they did it to fuck with Carpenter, who when he found out, he was like, you guys totally Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Freaking out.
Don't
And I
twin
also
shit.
feel like
Don't twin shit, says the summer.
the last act of Christine is kind of like, we see that again in Body Bags. And,
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, this is one of those films I wouldn't hate to see remade. I really wouldn't hate to see this remade.
I think I think you could do a really interesting.
You know what I mean? Because
you know what,
he
though?
took what was a mediocre Stephen King book and made it into a pretty
Right,
good movie.
but that's why I think the remake doesn't work, is because what's special about this movie is what Carpenter brings
I
to
think
it.
you got to take what Carpenter did and just make it a little bit better.
Well, that is generous. That anyone
I definitely agree with Phil that he took a mediocre Stephen King book and made it into a
not
better
one of
movie.
his best books.
Yeah,
Not one
no,
of his best
Christine's
books.
not.
Keith Gordon, who played the lead actor here, Arnie, he
Is
kind of
a great
He kind of
director.
went on from that to
That's
become a
right.
director.
Really interesting, exciting director.
Super active in television right now. With
But he
shows like
did some
the
really interesting movies in the 90s, like Mother Night.
He did.
And,
Once Upon a Midnight Clear.
Yeah.
and then...
But right now he's
Great
directing
episodes.
episodes of Leftovers, The Killing, Fargo, The
Dexter.
Strain,
He's all over
Dexter.
it.
He's a big TV actor of really interesting TV shows. It's like,
yeah,
oh, wow,
he's directing
okay.
the crap out of TV.
And then we have
Smart man.
What's her face who was in
that.
Baywatch. That's
There were somewhere between, depending on what you read, but either 17 or 28 versions of the car.
I read 24.
It depends on what you. I read so many different.
It
ones.
makes you wreck the fuck out of that car.
There's
It
only
makes you want to get one.
There's only two
Yeah,
left.
it's a wreck.
They use parts from the Belvedere and the Savoy as well.
I have
There's
to
only
say,
two left, and they just sold one a few years ago for $130,000.
Only
funny.
two left from the actual movie, but you can find an actual
the 58,
Fury
you
or whatever
can get the
somewhere.
58 Fury. I think.
Yeah,
I think
it makes
they
me wanna
have-
get one
I
now.
think they have resto kits.
Also, this is back in the day before The Ring, where they were like, if a horror movie's not rated R, nobody's going to go see it. So when they got their finished cut, they got rated PG, and they were like, fuck, that's not going to work. And so they intentionally put fuck in it, the word fuck into it several times just to give themselves a rated R.
That's one of the things I love about Carpenter is because I need more R-rated horror films in my life, and Carpenter always made R-rated horror films, and he would go back and reshoot them to make sure that they were R-rated.
You want to hear a really funny, quick side note story? On my film Dead Awake, I had a producer who literally would limit me in the amount of fuck. You can only have one fuck before it becomes rated R. He goes, choose that fuck wisely. And then wound up getting rated R anyway because of drug use. So I'm sitting there and I had like so many
I could
fucks.
have had all these fucks.
I had so many fucks I wanted to use.
How many fucks would you have given?
I mean, a lot of, and I got one fuck.
Phil could
all the
have
fucks
given
to
all the
give.
fucks.
I definitely had 5 fucks. I gave 5 fucks, and I got one.
So our
Well,
next
you can
movie-
use them all tonight.
Try not to fuck any movies on your way to the parking lot.
All right, what do we got next? Moving on.
Prince of Darkness, which is my favorite. This is hands down my
Wait,
favorite.
I thought you said this was your least favorite.
but I just know I
Change
no,
your mind.
I
You
changed my
literally,
mind.
America.
like weeks ago, you told me you don't like Prince
but
of
I
Darkness.
thought about it.
Okay.
Yeah, you did.
You
You,
have a-
thought long and hard about it.
The lowest to the best?
No, I went from my favorite to not my favorite to my favorite again.
Prince of Darkness is one of my favorites.
All right.
And this is the second of the Apocalypse Trilogy, all three of which are among my favorites of his things. And this was not one of his better received films when it came out. And even today, it's considered to be controversial among Carpenter fans of whether this is one of his best or one of his worst. I've talked to plenty of people who
know what
can't
those people
stand
are.
this
Yeah.
movie.
Those people are not Carpenter fans.
I tend to agree. I think the problem with people for this film seems to be just how entirely abstract this is. I mean, even Carpenter's not a terribly abstract filmmaker, and this is a really abstract Carpenter film in terms of what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, by the end, you have to sit and think about it to get to really decide
It's
for
your
yourself
turn to
what
do a plot
happens.
summary.
But he's really intelligent in this too, like
Amen.
challenging all kinds of ideas of like, you know.
All right,
Go
I'll
ahead, you
take
talk.
this one quickly as a plot summary.
Oh, he's doing it. Okay.
Okay,
No,
go
you're going to
ahead.
jump on it?
No, you do it, please.
Summary.
This is the hardest one to do the plot summary.
Yeah, no way.
So basically, the premise of this film is that there is a small group of, I think they're masters or PhD
Graduate
candidates,
students,
graduate
yeah.
students, who are called to a church in downtown LA where a strange, otherworldly entity is contained to study it scientifically and determine what it is. And they slowly begin to realize that it may be the devil itself, and it has been contained by the church secretly for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And then
Which
they
is
all start
just
to have the same dream. The homeless start to circle outside the prison.
Alice Cooper.
Alice
church.
Cooper,
Yeah,
bitch.
yeah, you do not want Alice Cooper circling outside where you're doing your PhD candidacy. So shit goes down. So
I love the fact, this is one of my favorite things is, like, okay, so the Vatican has had this container for thousands.
that's
like,
locked from the inside, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
Why you would
they've had
lock it from the
I think
inside?
At one point they mentioned that they've had it for 5,000 years or something like that, and all it took was 5 graduate students and a very, like, ancient computer to solve the problem.
We've been sitting on this pilot script for you can't do that on television for 1,000 years, but now it has
But now,
become released.
You know, all we needed was these 5
I
graduates.
never questioned this movie.
And 5 incompetent graduate students, because my favorite part is they're all
They're
studying
sleepy and they're horny, all
they're
right?
they're all studying, like, physics, quantum theory, and one of them has to explain to the other one what Schrodinger's cat was, and I'm just like, really? How does that
This was the days before the internet. Your
but
average person didn't know
You're
about
studying
Schrodinger's cat.
physics and don't know what Schrodinger's cat is? Come on.
So hard on it.
Come
Obviously,
on.
the movie's not working for patients.
And I'm a fan of this
I
movie,
feel like she's like, oh no, I'm a fan, but I'm going to trick you guys by saying,
Yeah, I'm like, I thought you liked this movie.
I do like
not
this movie,
good.
but I thought that was pretty hysterical, and I love Alice Cooper.
I mean, this is Donald Pleasance returning again as Father Loomis.
Yeah.
mind you.
Hey.
I don't understand that.
Check yourself.
preference, though.
He was a
Check
good,
yourself, Cox.
Just
he's a
saying.
good actor. I didn't like his character though.
And Parker
Also,
Stevenson.
check yourself, Goose.
He's a good actor. I didn't like his character. The
Parker
choices he
Stevenson
made.
of Simon and Simon showing up with the best staff
Right?
in the 80s.
Thank you so much. I think this was the only movie he did other than like his Simon and Simon.
Yeah,
episode.
it's
And again, totally hooking up. making it happen.
Making it happen with the hot ladies in his garage.
I feel like this is John
Dennis
Carpenter
Dunn.
bringing back the family.
Dennis
you know?
Dunn from Big Trouble in Little China.
he is
Return.
calling on his repertoire of actors to be in this movie. Dennis Dunn and
Don't forget Victor Wong.
I was just about to say Victor Wong
is one of the major
killing
reasons
it
I
with
like
his
this
amazing
movie.
speech about quantum physics.
And John Carpenter actually wrote this screenplay under a pseudonym. Correct?
That's right.
Yeah, Martin Quatermass,
Yeah,
which of course is
so-
a tribute to the British Quatermass
Side note:
films,
if you have
the
not
Quatermass
seen the
experiment.
Quatermass films,
Yeah.
you've seen them. Chris has seen them. So,
I've seen the original movie and the pilot of the TV series.
have you seen
they
Quatermass
did.
in the Pit?
Yes, I've seen
Okay,
that. Yeah.
so side note, and obviously Quatermass being an inspiration for the Loomis character, or the in the Halloween films or whatever. So yeah, he's obviously
Bernard Quatermass.
Yeah, the character who investigates all the supernatural phenomenon in those films.
I forget that writer who wrote that character, Nigel Neal. I forget what it was. He actually turned in a script to one of the earlier Carpenter films
It's for it's Season of the Witch.
Season of the Witch, and then they didn't use it, and he was still going to get credit. He was like, "I hate the script they came up with, so take my name off."
Yeah.
You know,
So real quick, do you like this movie?
I like this movie with a caveat only because I love the ending. Like, meaning, like, I thought it was
One of my
thing, but not as good.
One of my favorite
Where it's
Carpenter
like people are just kind of getting spit on and become the devil, and they get spit on and become the devil, and they get spit on and become the devil, and then but the ending is so good. I love. Are we allowed to give like spoilers? This thing's like 30 years fucking old.
30 years
I
old.
think
When she reaches her hand inside the mirror and starts pulling out, like, holy shit, this devil thing.
Yeah.
That, and then the girl like dives her into the mirror and like saves humanity.
I mean, I guess
that's a pretty bold.
It was the first
thing.
film I had ever seen that tried to combine, like, that tried to look at, like, what if all that stuff from, like, the Bible and, like, even, like, a darker, you know, the idea of, like, oh, there's darker interpretations, like Satan is real. What if all that actually exists, but they're not religious figures? We could scientifically understand what they are, but they are, like, evil is equivalent to antimatter as good is equivalent to matter. I mean, they literally refer to...
It's like he got high and heard of the Antichrist and started looking at antimatter.
Yeah, it's the anti-god, isn't that what they called it? It's like what this stuff is.
It's not necessarily the devil. It's just
it's like
not
the idea
good.
being like
Like
this is
dark matter.
this is the best simple man could understand it was to put it in terms of good and evil, but it's a billion times more complex than that, and even which itself treads on sort of Lovecraftian ideas. I feel like I mean, it was really. It felt like the movie itself is like you're never really going to understand this. And that's how it's supposed to be, you know?
I don't know if it was because I was a certain age that I was at the time when I saw this film, which I'm not going to reveal to our audience, but this movie, The Seventh Sign, and Serpent in the Rainbow were probably three of the most influential movies.
Lee Diamond Phillips? Lee Diamond Phillips?
No, that was Demi Moore.
You're thinking of the Seventh Power or whatever.
Seventh Power, yeah. Okay, I was like, Lee Diamond Phillips?
Seventh Sign with Demi Moore, and then Serpent in the Rainbow were probably the three most influential reasons why I have an undergrad degree in religious studies.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
Prince of Darkness was that good.
So you would have been one of the people they chose
to go and study this.
You'd be like, what Schrodinger's
So
kid?
Yeah.
I have to
What's
say, like, I had
Kid
sort of
from Peanuts?
So we had somehow missed this movie in Carpenter's filmography, and our friend was like, "Oh, you got to watch it." And I remember,
Wait, till how long?
there wasn't. I mean, probably in our years ago, whatever. But we had not seen it, and our friend was like, he had it on VHS. He's like, "Oh, you got to watch it." And I remember we watched it kind of in the middle of the night. We were kind of sleepy, it was Russ and I, and our buddy fell asleep, and it was just us. And I remember genuinely being flipped out by this movie and seeing it at the Draft House again in 35mm. They struck a new print,
I bet you.
and I dragged my poor girlfriend at the time to see it, and it was, if you engage with this movie on its level, and I think like probably if you're just going to be like the wisecracking guy, like, bunch of 80s stuff, why is this guy wearing his stash? You're not going to totally get the movie, but if you engage this film on its level and you really like pay attention to it, and you will get sucked in, and it is creepy and unnerving. apocalyptic, genuinely scary in a way that I don't think most movies affect me. And I feel that way when I watch this movie. Like, I put down the phone, I don't look at my watch, like, I get sucked into this movie.
Yeah.
Because it's, unlike most horror movies, it's end-of-the-world shit. Where, like, and I feel like that about it feels so out of your control.
It feels like this is one thing happening during this end-of-the-world scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe it's key to all that, but, like, there's probably another 18 horror movies going on, like, in other cities
I mean,
at the same
And
time.
this is also part of the
Connected to
Apocalypse
it.
Trilogy.
Part of the Apocalypse
Right,
Trilogy,
and
which aren't connected in the same plot.
Yeah.
as
And
the
I have to
end of the
say,
world
and I think this
movies.
is something we haven't brought up much with Carpenter, is he is a writer.
Yeah.
So not only is he this amazing director and visualist, and he's composing his own fucking score, he writes these movies, and this is a purely original screenplay, which I don't think you can say about a lot of directors. And it's a purely original idea, and he has really amazing special ideas about, like, quantum physics and evil and science. And I think all those things combine together to really make the movie unnerving.
See, that's where I'll disagree just a hair.
fine, yeah.
Just because he was so influenced by things like the Rio Bravos and whatnot, that to me, this was like the Thing, not 2.0, but the Thing negative 2.0. Like, meaning it was a lesser thing. And it's the same exact premise.
But I love that about it.
Instead of snow outside, it's homeless people that you could definitely outrun if you were a college student.
But that's the weakest point of this film. Is that aspect, the homeless people outside.
Right,
Oh, I
but
love
that's
that part.
Alice Cooper feels like stunt casting, first
sure,
off.
totally.
Okay,
Shut
that's
your
fine. I'll give
dirty
you that.
mouth.
I'm sorry, like, every time he's on screen, I'm like, oh, that's
No, I
Alice
agree.
Cooper. It pulls
I
you
agree.
right out of the movie.
And-
I mean, even the
but
one
that first cut-
even the one big horror effect where he kills someone is literally
A prop from his stage.
a prop from his stage show that he
yeah.
famously was doing on stage at that
Yes,
time. Like,
but
they
the
used
first cut
that
to the
same
homeless
prop.
woman, and she has ants crawling on her face.
No, that was cool.
It's genuinely creepy.
But
Right.
as that
And the guy
aspect goes
who's
along,
standing outside is like, "I've got a message for you, and you're not going to like it."
Yeah.
Amazing.
There
Like,
are
I mean,
points- there are
It,
points
it
in
works
interaction-
in
what I
Prince
was
of
gonna say about the
Darkness,
movie.
does not work in the Void.
But here's where I'm going with that is even with the outside presence keeping you in the building thing, it is literally we're inside one building and somebody's the devil's servant going around spitting on people and turning them into the devil's servant. It's the thing. I mean, it's the
That's a
same
valid
premise,
point.
and you just take out like what to me is a 10
Instead
out of
of
10
it's the
genius.
cold, it's a bunch of homeless people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You take a
that's-
10 out of 10 the thing, and then you get this, and to me it's a 6 out of 10. It's still
I
fun.
feel like the film is very apocalyptic, and the anxiety associated with that is so strong. I don't know that I can dismiss the movie in that way.
I agree.
I agree, and I think they're all having that same dream, and it's a stunning.
Which made no sense to
That's
me.
the strongest
No,
point,
I love
though.
that.
That's
The idea,
strongest point of the whole film.
Because we have no idea how to
closer
communicate to you.
are
Yeah.
to the entity that's caged, and they're all having this video dream.
That's what I love. That's what I love so much about this movie. That is the highest point of quality of this. Is that idea that they're all having this dream, and at first you're like, you think it's going to be more kind of a run of the mill plot element, and as it goes along, you're like, wow, this is actually them sending
It's a
themselves
transmission from the
transmission
future.
from the future as a warning that is not really from the. It's
and
not
then
a
at the
message
end,
from Satan.
it twists to explain what you've been seeing the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
But
I love that.
You know what
element
blew
of
my
it.
mind about that? That was like, how does a transmission from the future look worse than the movie we're seeing today?
Which, by the way, they
Like,
did.
how does the quality...
Second, hey, lower resolution
So they did
transmits
it.
better through time. That makes perfect sense to me as a person who has to work with 4K and 1080p
It's
and 720p.
we're gonna send it in
the
4
lower
by 3.
resolution is going to blast through the airways easier.
Hey, did they do
You
that
know this.
Cronenberg where they actually filmed it in like VHS?
Well, they filmed it in VHS and then they filmed.
Then they
it
filmed
on
that.
TV.
They projected
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And by the way,
which is what Cronenberg
Summer,
did
if you
with
look
Videodrome.
Agreed.
on our Instagram, we have a picture of us at that church in LA. Like that was
It's
It's
like
fantastic.
Pretty
If you
cool.
go to LA, you should totally
By the way,
go.
that church is totally tiny and it undermines the whole movie.
Speaking
You're like,
of
it's so small.
churches,
Yeah, speaking of churches, let's go into part
do you like my
3
segue?
of
right.
the Apocalypse Trilogy, and which I have not seen since it originally came out. I remember seeing it and going, In the Mouth of Madness, going, yeah, it was all right. And then I rewatched it for the first time ever just a few weeks ago for this podcast and went, wow, this is now officially one of my favorite John Carpenter films.
I mean, proving again how Chris is wrong about most things.
Oh,
But honestly,
do you need some aloe vera?
yeah,
Seriously?
you got burned, bro.
For that
I would if I took his opinion more seriously.
we need to call an ambulance.
I'm out of here.
I deeply love this movie now. I really do. And
Hard not
partially
to.
because I think this is the greatest Lovecraft movie ever made that
I would
just
agree with that.
happens to not actually be about a
I
Lovecraft
agree.
story.
It's a good Lovecraft movie, but not necessarily the greatest Carpenter.
Oh, I knew there was a butt in there.
No, but it's not the greatest
Sorry.
Carpenter. It's one of my favorites, but it's not one. It's not unquestionably not the
Well,
greatest.
I would say it's not my favorite Carpenter just because there's so many good Carpenter movies.
Yeah, that's right.
I like 30% of it.
It appeals to so many of like the things that are like, and this
setup's
appeals
great.
to my interests type of stuff in it. And there's so many neat little. That's the stuff I love in horror movies that it does that kind of did before anybody else.
Oh my
did.
gosh! So my favorite, very, very, very favorite part of this movie is when she like straight up swallows the car keys and he just like punches her in the face.
Which, by the way, were made of pasta.
All right.
Yeah.
Somebody
That was-
synopsize.
Oh yeah, we should synopsis.
That's Chris's turn.
Who's on
Chris,
this
it's
one?
Chris's
It's
turn. It's Chris. You love it so much, Chris.
I do. I mean, basically, you get Sam Neill as your main character, who is a insurance agent who's one of those like very celebrated in his company because he's very good at his job. Who is brought in to investigate the disappearance of a sort of Stephen King level writer named Sutter Kane.
I want a
do you read
coffee
Sutter
mug,
Kane?
too. You saw the coffee mug today. I want a coffee mug.
It
with Sutter
says,
Kane on it.
do you read Sutter Kane?
Yeah, I want
on it?
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you read Sutter Kane?
Yeah, do you read Sutter Kane? And when the show starts, we see him when this movie starts, we see that he's in an asylum, and we're like, well, how did he get there? So flashback, he is like a normal guy investigating this. He gets sent by the book company. He's like, we can't find him. We don't know where he is. We just know that some weird shit's going on with his latest book, but we need you to find him. He pieces together, admittedly, the weakest part of this film, because I still don't know how he came up with this. Like, from all the covers of the books, a map to where he is.
No, but it's very clear on the cover. If you see the cover,
there's
there's
a red
red
line.
outlines on all the
I
covers.
was not clear.
Which forms
following it.
the.
If you had all
state
the
of
books in
the
front of you.
picture.
Well, thank goodness they didn't hire Chris to find him.
Exactly. But they send him out there with a lady who works for the company to go, okay, you guys go find him together. And right from there is where the movie really takes off for me, where he clearly kind of goes through some sort of weird space-time hole on the way that she's more aware of than he is. And they end up in the tiny little town, which isn't even on the map of, what was it, Hobbs something?
Hobbs End?
Yeah, Hobbs End. And only to find that everybody there is thoroughly weird and even more disturbing. Every single thing in this town is just literally word for word right
From
out of
one
a
of his
Sutter Kane
novels.
book. And as it goes along, he starts finding that maybe Sutter Kane isn't a fiction writer at all. It's more. It's obviously. For those who haven't seen, I know it came out a while ago. I don't want to get too much into spoilers because if you haven't seen this one, and a lot of people haven't. Part of the fun of this one really is the discovery of realizing what's really going on in this thing, which even at the end is not completely clear, but
Again, a film that's very comfortable with ambiguity.
it's his most comfortable with
I feel like
ambiguity
this is
film.
also his least John Carpenter film. I mean, because John Carpenter has like this, when he makes his films, he has a very minimalistic sort of outlook. He, like we've talked about before, especially with Halloween, he simple story, simple, and this one was very convoluted, and I thought this was the least John Carpenter of
Did you
all
like
of his
it?
films. I did actually like it. Not the first time, but the second time I watched it. Yeah, I did like it. I like Sam Neill though. He's just
Yeah, we didn't
outstanding.
mention him. He's terrific.
It's also some of his best monster practical work since The Thing. Some of the monsters in here are bad.
Apparently, I heard that they cut a lot of it out too.
They
Like
did.
he wanted a ton in the actual movie, and some of it towards the end, like they cut out because they felt like, oh, it looks like practical effects. Cut it.
It's clear that this guy had a bigger vision for the story than you
than
actually end up seeing
He had
on
budget
screen.
for it. There's so many great moments in this that you're just like blown away, but it didn't take a lot. Like that, the innkeeper and her husband. Like
Yeah,
that
that's
is one
creepy.
of my favorite.
See, I was about to
moments.
mention that. I think the moment when they pan down, you're like, "What's going on underneath this counter?" is genuinely terrifying,
A little naked
and
dude
weird
handcuffed
and
to the-
strange
yeah.
in a way that most movies don't even go there. And it's just like it's such a shock, and you're like, whoa, what's happening? Like,
But you know what I like? He handles it with class, though, too, and like integrity. He doesn't like it. Doesn't. It's not overly graphic, but that's that ambiguity that makes it creepy.
But I feel it in the pit of my stomach.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite cuts in the entire movie.
That's what I appreciate about Carpenter, too, though, is he doesn't go, I mean, sure, it is gory sometimes, but he doesn't go over the top.
No.
It's just enough that you get what's going on and your imagination does the rest. But see, where I disagree with you a tad is I love the first 30% of the movie. Like
The
you said,
setup is really draws
the
you
setup to me, like, is the best part. And then once I got in there, I started questioning a lot of things, like, okay, wait, what? Like, why does this guy look like Vigo from Ghostbusters 2? Like, hanging out in this, like, one church with, like... I just started questioning all these things, and then things... I mean...
Come on,
It
this
gets
is my favorite
repetitive.
part of
It
Fear
just
Fest.
does.
Like, we can't leave the town.
That didn't like bother me even slightly.
Well,
I was
part
like,
of that's very
But to me,
boring.
even the look...
That was
But even the look, to me, looks dated. I look at
I
this
agree with
movie,
that.
and it's
It looked
so
dated then.
dated to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Like, when I watch the 70s and early 80s, they look
That's
pretty
actually,
amazing.
I kind of
90s.
agree with that because it was 95, but I thought that, like, when
Looks like
the
Vigo.
first time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is like a 70s movie. And then I was like, oh, shit, this is 95.
It is not as sophisticated, probably visually. Cinematography-wise, I don't think it's sort of as grounded or interesting as maybe something like Christine.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. But I do think... by the way, I want to point out, do you guys know who wrote this movie?
Yeah, Michael DeLuca.
Michael DeLuca.
Big
who
producer. Huge producer.
Huge
Yeah,
producer
New
who
Line
was actually an
Cinemas.
executive. This was his only real produced screenplay, and he was a big executive at New Line, like greenlighted.
He read an episode of Voyager.
What?
Oh
He
my
did?
god,
Yeah.
we don't
He
have
also
to bring
was-
Star Trek into everything.
He was actually apparently his script was one of the things that helped conceive of Voyager as a show in the
Oh
first
wow!
place. So.
Well, a big actual film nerd, and it went on to sort of be one of the younger executives ever in the history of big movies. Greenlighted Seven and helped greenlight the Lord of the Rings stuff.
Yeah.
And this was
He's an Oscar-winning producer.
Right, and now he's gone on to produce like The Social Network and all this big shit, and actually produced the Oscars this year with all the
Oscar-winning and Oscar producer.
yeah, an Oscar fucking up producer. But fascinating, and I think it feels like a person who's probably a big fan of Lovecraft. And then you luckily have someone like Carpenter who gets Lovecraft and understands how to do
Who's
it.
been dying for a chance to make a Lovecraft
Right, because
type
I think
movie his whole
he hints
career.
at all kinds of Lovecraftian ideas, even in like The Thing or something, the idea of an endless entity.
It's not even subtle. I mean, like, even when they're reading out, which they repeatedly do, quotes from the books or names of the books, they're all, like, not quite word for word, but, like, missing 2 words out of 30 Lovecraft quotes, you know?
So-
Like, even towards the end where they describe the void when you see it as the illimitable gulf of the unknown, which is exactly the quote from The Rats on the Walls from Lovecraft.
So, Summers Brothers, I mean, this is your least
listen,
favorite. I'm getting
I have loved this film
Okay,
since its initial release. And I think also this is an example of the kind of movie that gets dismissed because of a director's sort of later filmography. And this is not that movie. And it's a movie that, I mean, Rob and I certainly have revisited several times.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and then right after this, he made our favorite sarcasm, Body Bags, which we all
No, wasn't that
eat.
before this?
No, Body Bags is after this.
Well, yeah, probably, yeah.
I have it as before, but maybe
we jumping
it
to
wasn't
Body Bags?
released.
Well, for
I think
release
I
as a
think
film.
I'm trying
Okay,
to
we're going to
segue.
Body Bags.
Trying to
But
segue
if
to
you
Body
if you're
Bags.
listening to this podcast, you will like In the Mouth of Madness. Go out of your way to see it.
I would
and not only that,
argue-
but you have Sam Neill, who's terrific.
Sam
Jordan
Neill's terrific.
Krakauer as
Hugo Weaving Jr., our senior.
yeah, exactly. But I think it is not a perfect film.
No.
But I think that and
it's super
But if
fun.
you want to watch actual horror from Carpenter, I think Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of Madness are really closer to the straight up horror movies.
Yeah.
More than his other films. Like, I mean, we're talking about films that are weird, scary, dark, strange.
You think more than Halloween and The Thing? These are better horror
Yeah, I
movies?
do. Well, maybe not Halloween. I think
Maybe
you're right.
more
I don't know if
horror-y,
they're better
I think
movies,
is what he's trying
but
to
there's
say.
certainly more examples
Horror-y.
of
I was
horror.
actually. I'm
Horror,
probably
like-
when I watch any of his movies,
Horror-ish.
Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of
Yes.
Madness are the 2 movies where I'm by myself in the house and I'm like, I'm getting kind of creeped
Is it
out.
because it involves more heaven, hell, priests
I think
than
there's
that?
yeah, I do. I think that the apocalyptic underpinnings of these movies, I think that's absolutely
and
true.
That makes sense.
his sort of ability to not blunt that.
Right.
Like, these are apocalyptic Armageddon sort of movies, and you feel that in every frame of the movie.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Now, I'll be honest, from here on out in his career,
Yeah, this is about
I'm
I really
having a
think
hard
that-
time finding anything.
I really
liked.
think he made only one other thing that I would even say is worth really.
Village of the
watching.
Damned.
let's get
Was it
into
Village
it.
of the
do this.
Damned?
All right, what's next? What's next?
Okay, Body
Next is
Bags
Body
is
Bags.
next.
Yeah, which
Okay,
is
I don't want to spend a lot of time on
No,
this.
I mean he made getting together with all his horror movie buddies, most specifically Tobe Hooper, who made Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He
Wes Craven.
A little movie you might have heard of.
Wes Craven has a little cameo
They put
in it.
together for Showtime a couple episodes as a sort of like, hey, here's our pilot thing for what we think would make a great horror anthology show. Showtime turned it down. He retook the footage and assembled it into this anthology
Painful.
film, 3-part anthology film that, quite frankly, really fucking sucks.
Wait. What year was this made, just out of curiosity?
Well, 93 is what I
93,
have.
yeah, 93 is
Showtime in
release.
93 was one of the
Yeah.
worst networks.
Yeah.
Turning down.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, honestly, I think that the only reason why any horror fan would watch Body Bags is for the cameos. There's so many great
Even
cameos.
then.
There's Toby
This is-
Hooper.
this is
Look,
a-
I gave them a look. When we walked in today,
Greg Nicotero
Chris gave
has
me
a
a very
cameo.
nice Blu-ray of this and to watch, which I had never seen. And when I gave it back to him today, I've never been more happy to give back
I'm
a
not
DVD.
saying it's
Like,
good.
it
I'm
is-
just saying if you're going to watch it, that's the only
So
reason.
it's definitely a Carpenter completist.
Yeah, it's reason you watch this is because you like Carpenter, but it's
Oh, it's
junk.
got Sam Raimi too. Look at that.
Yeah, look,
Sam
I mean,
Oh my God,
this
it
is
doesn't
like,
matter
Sheena
who's in it.
Easton,
Carpenter
Deborah Harry.
doesn't matter.
Carpenter's
Can't
got a
sell this
thing-
movie enough.
Carpenter's had a thing throughout his whole career of referencing heavily other stuff, of casting people he's worked with before, of naming people
And
after
normally
people
I
he's
like
worked with
that.
or admired. This is like that end of party at 6 a.m. version of that, where like
Everyone's
like,
done
it's
far
kind
too
of-
much cocaine.
It's kind of pathetic at this point.
Yeah.
The way they're
So real quick, we should summarize.
Oh, cripes.
Well, you're the
Look,
summer.
I'm just going to summarize this thing in like 2 seconds. Basically,
Summarize
Carpenter
it.
take 3 episodes of the worst HBO TV show, like Tales from the Crypt or The Hitchhiker from like the 80s
like the
/90s.
worst episodes of that show.
Yeah, of that show. Take that show and then take the worst episodes of that show and then mush them together in a feature film where it's basically 3 tiny Twilight
With
Zone
Carpenter in it
as
and
the
a bizarre
Crypt Keeper,
cameo.
Yeah.
Crypt Keeper guy in this
It's
like
so
morgue.
weird.
The only
It's
part
painful to
the only
watch.
part
I don't
would
wanna watch
call
this.
Oh, it's,
watchable.
dude, you don't want to watch it.
The only part I call watchable is those interstitial parts because they're just so unbelievably
No.
absurd that
Terrible.
they even exist.
They are like
That
watching
just,
something
like,
where, oh, check out this thing on
what
YouTube
if
that everybody
Carpenter-
tried to bury. Like
what
they're
if Carpenter
fucking
was
terrible.
playing the Crypt Keeper? This is the horror equivalent of the
That's
Star Wars
literally
It
what
Christmas
is
special.
fucking terrible.
Oh,
And you can see,
Totally
you can
is.
see that
Nothing's
it's
ever that
basically,
bad.
you can see that it's a made for HBO Showtime type show.
Yeah.
You can see that that's
Dude,
really what.
Stacy Keach is a guy who grows
Stacey
like metal 80s
fucking
metalhead long hair. So there's all these scenes of
hadn't
Stacy
heard that
Keach
name.
like,
That
blowing
doesn't
his
even
hair
do
back.
justice to how bad that
Whose love
segment
interest
is.
is Sheena Easton, nonetheless.
Is that who
All
that
right.
is?
Yeah,
She looks
All right,
great.
all right.
And of course, Debbie Harry is
Deborah
the nurse.
Harry.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next
Okay,
thing.
I don't, because honestly, I don't feel like this is a Carpenter movie. But more importantly, I don't really feel like this is a movie.
What's
I
two
think
of-
the
two of
Summers
the
Brothers
segments-
have a really strong.
It's a
You
bad
can't. There can't be
Opinions.
anything you like about this
You're
movie.
Yeah, your boy fell on his face here, huh?
Oh yeah, no, he sucks.
I mean, two of the episodes are Carpenter. One is Tobe Hooper directed, but which is even worse than the Carpenter
It
one.
doesn't matter who directed.
And you're like,
it.
oh, Mark Hamill's in this. This will be fun. No, it's not.
Speaking
fun.
of Mark Hamill, guess
It's
what's he
not
doing?
worth
Speaking
investigating.
of Mark Hamill, that's actually our next movie, which is Village of the Damned, which I absolutely
Hello.
love. Village of the Damned. So you guys
Wow,
can all fuck
this
off.
just happened.
This could be
All right,
fun.
who's summarizing Village of the
I
Damned?
will say, of the horror films that we're covering, this isn't my least favorite Carpenter. That probably still goes to Escape from L.A. But this is my least favorite Carpenter horror film.
I like.
I
Village of the
find
Damned.
it so
all right,
incredibly
I would say The
banal.
Fog. I would say The
Really?
Fog.
I still say the
Over
fog. I
this?
still say the fog.
I can't finish The Fog. I can finish
someone
Um,
summarize this.
I'll
Go,
do
go,
it.
do it.
But he's like, I'll take this bullet for you guys because I love it.
There's a small town. Aliens pretty much show up and knock everyone unconscious.
And rape them.
And the women wake up and they're pregnant. And there's a doctor in town played by Superman, Christopher Reeves. And he's like, hold on, everyone's knocked up. This is odd. Then they give birth to some little alien albinos. And
well, that's fine.
It's the most dismissive plot summary in the history of it.
and one alien albino is missing his mate because it was stillborn. And that kid grows up to be an actor, by the way. That kid's like in other movies.
Yeah,
he's in the new Nightmare.
The Terminator, the television show.
Shit,
Terminator.
but he's also in that new Nightmare on Elm Street remake too, with Rooney Mara.
Thomas Dekker?
Yeah. Hey, so he was a little kid. He was David.
Sarah Connor Connor.
So anyway,
I can't say that.
point being is little alien kids get blown up and shit, and it's a bad thing happens, and the town gets raped by aliens.
Alien rape.
Nothing happens in this fucking movie that stuff should be. You're just like, and everyone acts like, well, I guess we got alien kids now. What
I don't know that I totally agree with that. I think there are some really. First of all, I think Christopher Reeve in this movie is amazing and worth watching the movie for. I think it will.
Last movie he made before he was crippled.
I hate it.
And he's great in the movie. Kirstie Alley is great.
I hated her.
Hamill, I don't think is particularly.
I hated him.
You see, weirdly, Michael.
I hated every actor in this movie.
All right, I'm going to disagree with Phil. I think the three leads, Alley.
You see, Michael Perry's given lead billing, and he dies 5 minutes into the film, and you're like, why was he given lead billing?
The Streets of Fire thing is a whole other thing.
I need to talk about this for a second. I absolutely love the cast of this movie. This is like my 90s dream cast.
I'm going to go with patience on this.
First of all, Eddie from Eddie and the Cruisers. He is like my.
Once again, in it for 5 minutes.
It doesn't matter.
Maybe 10. Maybe 10.
No, but
he was the biggest helium.
But I want to
go
go patience in the sense that Carpenter did the kind of thing that we all give Tarantino credit for, which is he finds these actors that are in other movies or that we think are sort of past their prime and gives them a really interesting role and lets them run with it.
Oh, man.
He himself described it as a contractual assignment, which he was not at all passionate about.
That said, I don't think it's a bad movie.
That's also some of his best movies.
Okay.
Agreed on that.
So, real quick, when you look at this movie, it looks like a telenovela. It looks like a soap opera so bad.
Not particularly well shot.
It's overlit. The acting is so on point that it annoys the shit out of me.
Except for, I think the main little girl is terrific.
Oh, the little girl is actually the only good one in there. You're right. I hate the leads.
Should be simple and effective, and instead they're cheap CG, like early CG that look terrible and like give no. I mean, like there would have been a way to do this that would have made it pretty cool. That would have cost about as much, but no imagination of any kind.
But I think you glimpse. There's a scene where Christopher Reeve confronts the children in the classroom. Do you remember
scene?
This? And he says
the ending when he has the wall.
Yeah, but he says like you should feel something. You should understand. And he tries to explain emotion to them.
Yeah. And
it's a sophisticated, interesting scene. It's what Carpenter's films do when they're really firing all cylinders.
It's the best scene in the film.
It is. And Reeve is terrific in it. And the kids are great. And there's an idea. And again, we're into, I think, like what I said, Carpenter is one of the only specialists ever in science fiction horror. And he clicks on, right there, everything in the movie comes together. And you glimpse what the movie should kind of be.
But there's also a remake. It's also a remake.
It is a remake, and I think
so's the thing. But
no, but the remake in this case is far superior to than the thing. The thing I like the remake better. Where actually the original is very better. It's much better.
But I do think there's an idea there. There's an emotionality. There's a science fiction idea of like aliens and people and humanity, and everything kind of comes together for me in that one moment. And in a way that, like cinema, when it clicks, when movies work, this movie has that scene.
And in particular, what Carpenter does, which is take science fiction or genre pictures and engage with an idea within that construct.
See, I mean, to me, it looks like he just didn't give a shit.
He doesn't, and I agree with you.
And it just feels like he phoned it in, man.
It's not a great film, and I think you can feel his heart in it, but I do think if you're a science fiction fan, a fan of like things like Star Trek, things that have ideas, Carpenter, there is still ideas in this film. The movie is not successful. You're right. It's cheesy. It's low budget. Most of it's not scary. It's not really exciting.
But it is 100%.
It is.
But even the intros, if you look at all of his movies.
But how many movies do you sit through that have no fucking ideas? Like that's why I think like something like this. Sure. That's why I think like when I watch Carpenter.
But it wasn't his idea.
You're right. That's what I'm upset about. It's not his idea, but his interpretation of it has ideas. There are things going on in it. And I guess this is where I do get into trouble as far as like when I like a movie. You're right. The film is not a success. When I watched it, even this last time,
You change his name on that movie, and again, no one even talked about it.
I would still like things about it. I would still.
I absolutely disagree. I actually like this film because I think it has a lot of elements of Carpenter in it.
Yes.
Whereas he's one of the things that I like about Carpenter, believe it or not, is I really like how he has this whole like. A lot of themes that run through his movies are like self-mutilation and like being forced to hurt yourself. And I think Village of the Damned captures that the most, where these kids are like controlling you. They're forcing you to hurt yourself against your will, which is something that is a rampant theme in all of Carpenter's movies. And this one captures it the best. And even though he didn't write it, I thought he portrayed it. And I thought that was the essence of Carpenter in those scenes.
See, what I find really interesting is, like, when I watch, Carpenter movies, I think you can tell in the first 10 minutes whether or not he gives a shit, based on how he brings people into the movie. And this one, it's like, here's an ocean with kind of a shadow. Here's a tree with kind of a bad CG shadow. Here's a house with kind of a bad CG shadow. And someone wakes up and goes, did you hear that? I didn't hear nothing. And I'm like, to me, it's like you look at other scenes, you look at the beginning of The Thing. Fucking A, that's an intro.
But then
the beginning of Halloween, that's an intro. The beginning of Christine, that's an intro. I could tell in the first 5 minutes he gave a shit or didn't give a shit.
But then there's this guy, like, burning to death on the barbecue.
That was cool, and that was 20 minutes in or 15 minutes in. That was cool.
I thought it was
So
earlier.
Christopher Reeve should have just been yelling out every 5 minutes, I was Superman, God damn it! What am I doing here?
You know what I want to do, though?
And Mark Hamill, I was fucking Luke Skywalker.
Wait,
we should have our own Luke Skywalker meets Superman film. I would watch that over this.
What was that Ring versus the Grudge movie? What was it called?
Sadako versus Kayako.
I can never remember that
So
thing. I'm
good.
always like Sakuraba versus
so
freaking
They
Kakarot.
just hear the
What I want to do,
versus
The Brood versus the Damned.
There you go.
That would be great.
Oh,
That'd be fun.
All right, so for sake of time, we got to move on to John. Isn't this the first one that actually got listed officially as John Carpenter's Vampires, as opposed to just the title of the film?
John Carpenter's the Christine. John Carpenter's the Thing.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it felt like, but like
something.
this. Every time I see a title like this listed anywhere, it's listed under John Carpenter's Vampires. Those other films I don't see listed that.
John Carpenter's Vampires.
This is where John Carpenter goes downhill for me, for sure. This is where he loses me.
Yeah, but even
The
this,
Carpenter couch disagrees.
even this is like a shift slightly up gear from Village of the Damned.
I agree.
It is.
I agree.
I agree.
I can't believe I'm the only Doom Patroller that liked Village of the Damned.
No,
I totally agree.
I think it's worth
like
seeing.
the
Do I think
movie,
it's a
and I think
success?
I think it's worth
Okay,
If you
watching.
guys have a
Russ.
1 to 10 rating, I just want to hear 1 to 10s on Village of the Damned real quick.
I would say 7 and 7.5.
Right there.
I'd give it like a 2.5.
I'm there with you. 2.5, 3.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch that movie than a lot of movies. I'm close to the patience. I'm going to go with 7 for sure.
Wow, really?
Dude, it's sci-fi. There's actors I like in it. It's John Carpenter. There's stuff going on. Yes, everything you guys said is true.
The cast alone.
Yeah, man. But there's
You know,
ideas.
of course, this means
Hey, man,
more.
how many hour and a
I'm
half
not
movies
sitting
have
on
you
the
sat through
Carpenter couch,
that don't
okay?
have one good scene?
That's true.
And Village of the Damned has at least one
That's
or two
not
of
enough
those.
for me to give it 5 extra points of the scale.
Chris,
Yeah, that
Chris
is.
and Philip are going to make me sit on the Carpenter couch now.
Fuck yeah. We got room over here.
Hey,
Sit with your friends.
Until she talks about vampires, get your ass back to the other
You guys haven't
couch.
heard my thoughts
All
on
right,
Ghost of Mars
vampires,
yet.
Let's get the
Somebody
vampires on.
summarize. Russ,
It's-
is this your
it's-
summary?
It's
Oh, no, I'll do it. I'll do
Okay.
it. Okay,
Please let
so
Patience do it.
James
she's
Wood...
dying to do it.
James Wood makes a terrible choice to be in this film. and
Bias. Strike that for the record right there. Hostile witness.
Yes.
Okay, I guess Russ should do
You
it
have to
then.
be unbiased on your synopsis.
Russ, you...
James Woods makes an awesome choice to be in a John Carpenter movie about fucking vampires.
Motherfucking
The
damn-
end. James Woods.
In this From Dusk Till Dawn ripoff.
No!
Wow.
This is bullshit.
This is.
I hope
wow.
there's at least one
this
podcast listener
has
hurtling
gone
their iPhone
amok.
across the room.
Disagree.
Okay, so I'm just going to take this over super quick. John Carpenter makes this film, which is I'm not going to get biased about. But James Woods is the leader of a group of vampire hunters that is sanctioned by the church. to hunt out vampires. Shit goes south, and he has to, his team gets wiped out, the vampires get the upper hand, his team gets wiped out, and he has to kind of team up with people he wouldn't normally team up with to take the rest
like
of
Daniel Baldwin.
the bad guys
Oh
out.
my god!
He's so great. I mean, he's so great.
You tell me you're being sarcastic
I
on
am.
that.
I'm totally being sarcastic.
Okay, so real quick, the cool thing about this movie, because God bless you.
Thank you.
While we're talking about vampires and the devil, the cool thing about this movie is it is a Western. It was almost like John Carpenter duped people into being like, "Yeah, I'm going to make your vampire movie."
It is very much, and there's even a couple shots that remind you of. It's very much the. Wild Bunch.
Sure.
If you watch, he said Wild Bunch, Red River. This was.
Oh, see, I read nothing about the backstory on this. I'm just watching it. When you watch them prepping to go into the first house, where there's going to be some vamps in this New Mexican house.
The opening sequence of this alone is worth watching.
The opening sequence, it takes them 10 minutes to walk into a house because they load their gun, stop, pause, look at the house, camera dolly in on Woods' face, camera dolly on the door. They walk 2 more steps, pause, wide shot, and it's literally.
You're only selling. The
I
movie
don't
to
know
me.
why Phil thinks this is a negative.
Yeah, no. I'm saying the
I want
positive
to watch this movie right now.
It is straight up like a Sergio Leone spaghetti western with vampires.
Agreed.
And like he completely duped somebody and let him to make this movie and turn it into a western.
Well, yeah.
Which to me, it's fun.
I mean, he had said at this point, I was considering retiring because he said, quote, it has stopped being fun making movies. All right. You can see why.
Which obviously it wasn't for a long time.
Even with his films that we, in retrospect, go, these were really good movies, at the time were not received very well. And he was like, okay, I'm kind of tired with being
Fun fact, this was his only 90s movie that actually made any money.
It was the only 90s movie that turned
I saw it in the
profit.
theaters. I paid. I added to that.
And even then was
I'm
only
so
double the
sorry,
budget.
Phil.
It wasn't
not
bad.
great.
It wasn't bad. I like James Woods though.
But
It
basically, they
wasn't
turned on.
bad.
They went and said, "Here's this thing," and he read the book and he went, "I finally get to make my Howard Hawks film again. Like I get to make a real
Right, which
Western,"
again
you know?
shows what kind of director he is, which is he has a vision for this film that is specific to John Carpenter, and I think like that's why he's a great director. No one would have made the movie that no one would have said, "Let's do the Wild Bunch, but with vampires."
And this
I
film
think he
both-
makes that. Now, I don't think this movie is perfect
This
by
film
any stretch.
succeeds and fails because of the casting. Like it's a movie that would have been a totally different movie if they had cast somebody different than James Woods and Daniel Baldwin, who both are the best and worst parts about this film. Like this is not a good film because Woods is in it. It's a very entertainingly watchable film because James Woods is in it.
It makes me think that he just loves Sergio Leone so much that he cast James Woods because of Once Upon a Time in America.
It's
type
just
thing.
so.
And apparently he let Woods walk all over him too.
It's so
Woods is great in the movie.
I agree. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Apparently, it was like
I mean,
he
Woods-
cast-
Look, Woods
Woods
is
is famous
Woods
for
is a
being
vampire
difficult.
hunting badass.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, sign me up.
Woods is famous for being difficult, but Carpenter said repeatedly in interviews, actually, it worked because the deal was, I'll film whatever it is you want to do, the version of the film, as long as you agree to let me film my version.
And the movie's awesome.
And they both would agree, and sometimes they went with his version, and sometimes they went with Carpenter's version. And it worked because of that. I like their relationship on this. I like him in the role. It just, I can see where the original author was like,
Okay.
wow, this doesn't even resemble my book anymore.
So
You know?
first off, I have to say, because this is a horror podcast, this isn't a scary movie, really, in any scene ever.
No, but and it also doesn't live up to the Wild Bunch in any
Nothing lives up to the Wild Bunch.
in any.
Continuity-wise, it lives up with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Just
Yeah,
not put it
that's-
out there.
that's-
Like,
Well,
all
I mean,
the
that's not a
terminology-
bad standard.
I
to
would
take.
say that the only redeeming quality I liked about Vampires as a vampire movie is that he did get away from that brooding vampire that we're so sick of in the 90s. You know what I mean?
Who's
like,
the vampire?
Thomasine Griffith.
Okay, Thomasine. Yeah.
which I think he's done.
He was like an
not
action
a-
star, kind
yeah.
of. And it was a neat... Again, like Carpenter sort of cast him sort of against type as the bad guy. But he does... and this was a mistake, I think, in the film. He's very much a traditional sort of vampire in the sense that...
He just kills.
Yeah, he's just like sort of the sort of handsome vampire, the Dracula
Definitely,
guy.
yeah, definitely.
Another
like Dracula
church fuck up.
2000.
Yeah, he's just the Dracula vampire.
Yeah.
Think about another church fuck up and another Carpenter movie.
So
the
Russ and I
same
have this
thing.
theory
Yeah,
that
agreed.
if you're a filmmaker, you have your vampire. Now, maybe he's the Nosferatu vampire. Maybe he's the Dracula vampire. Obviously, this was Carpenter's
This
vampire.
is the killing vampire.
Yeah, and he's not the greatest. He's not the most interesting vampire. He's obviously he cast a sort of somewhat
I
interesting.
think he has like 2 lines or something. I mean,
he's
it's
done a little
More
bit more.
than that.
He says his
There's
name a couple
definitely
times.
some weird misogyny in the movie. I don't love.
It's a weird take on the whole, like, okay, there are masters, but he's the master's master, but
Yeah.
then he's never really given a
The
personality.
mythology of the movie is weak.
I mean,
it's
one of the
not
things I
particularly
really liked here was Cheryl Lee, who is weird that she's even a part of this
But I
movie.
do feel like there's some weird misogyny towards her character.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
But
They
her
definitely...
performance,
James Woods is
her
like...
performance nails that. My theory that Sheryl Lee is the greatest actress in history of representing unfathomable horror in a performance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody has ever gotten that, like, I'm so scared that, like, there just aren't words. My soul is being destroyed as you're watching me. That's how frightening whatever I'm
Now I
seeing
have to come
is.
up.
Yeah.
Like, she did it great in Twin Peaks, and she did it great here. And it's like one of those little added things in this movie that brings it up a notch for me, because she's so scared that it makes you feel like you should be more scared, even though when you finally see the vampire, you're like,
Mostly
it's
my
still kind of a pretty boy.
I agree with you. Mostly my monkey brain is distracted by how cute she is in this movie. Like, I think she's a really attractive woman.
Crimteranol.
Say what?
Crimteranol.
Oh
It's a
my god, I don't
girl
care.
thing, never mind.
That is like not what I cared about.
I thought you said Crimteranol.
But I do think that the
Wait,
film
what?
is probably one of Carpenter's biggest examples of misogyny. Her character is definitely problematic politically.
Well,
like,
her in a relationship with Daniel.
Well, I was about to say, I hated
Yeah.
Daniel Baldwin's character arc. Made no sense to me that you can beat a woman
and he's-
and,
I just
then
hate
fall in love
Daniel
with her.
Baldwin.
terrible best,
Yeah.
terrible, a lot of things. Yeah, not
See, the funny thing is my
Samuel stole that best, by the
my
way,
biggest
Jurassic
problem
Park.
with this movie is I feel like Carpenter just went on the cheap. Like, he definitely, it didn't feel like he cared about this movie. I mean, he reuses this, like, sunrise stock footage, like, no less than 3 times at the end, where he's just panning to this, like, sky, and it's like, that's the same sky we just saw an hour ago in the movie. Like, when the sky looked different, I mean, isn't it supposed to be sunrise? I mean it just felt like he went on the cheap.
It is a not successful film, but I will say, and I think I was talking about this earlier, just the beginning alone, where they're dragging vampires out with like harpoons and
That's
winches.
the biggest problem, is that that's so cool.
Yeah, it's good.
And then it just evolves from
5
there.
to 10 minutes.
I want to watch a whole ensemble action film
And
with
then
this crew.
Right, and then they kill
all of
everybody.
them.
Can we make a remake? We need a remake.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't.
There's a sequel with John Bon Jovi.
There's two
And the Tasha Gregson Wagner.
direct-to-video
I have
sequels.
seen the sequel.
I actually think
I
the
don't remember it,
third
though.
It's not
direct-to-video sequel is kind of interesting
You know,
and not a bad movie.
Whoa,
What-
you
what-
even saw that?
No, it's the one with they reference, believe it or not,
It's the
Ambrose
martial
Bierce.
arts,
No,
described
that's
as a
the one.
martial arts vampire
Oh, I totally
film.
fucked that
Yeah.
up.
you know what though?
Wait,
It-
is that the one with John Bon Jovi?
Yeah,
No,
John Bon
that's- no,
Jovi,
no,
Los
no,
Muertos.
that's the third one we're
Vampires
talking
Los
about.
Muertos.
We're talking about the
yeah,
second
I'm
one.
talking about the third one.
The third one is Vampires the Turning. The second one is
Los
Vampires
Muertos.
is Los Muertos.
Okay,
Yeah,
then I was
John Bon
talking about
Jovi.
the second one.
so here's my thing with it. He obviously did not give a shit about this movie, because when you're watching it,
I don't think that's true.
100%. I've seen Halloween. I've seen when you kill somebody, how it looks when you kill somebody, and I've seen a wide shot from behind Valak the Vampire just throwing fucking weird left and right hooks at nothing and people flying out of the way. Like, since when did you forget how to direct a scene of somebody getting killed with a fucking weapon or a hand?
And not
when did
unlike-
you forget to shoot a close-up?
Not
When did you forget?
Unlike the Fog, where their ghosts were using knives, why are the vampire hunters using guns? Why are
Constantly.
they using guns?
All through it, they're constantly shooting. It's like, it does nothing.
It slows them down
just
like a little
saying-
bit for a
yeah,
second.
but for literally a second.
They're
Literally
professional
a second.
If you watch the scene when Valak destroys the monks,
Yeah.
it's like watching a bad segment of like WWF, like from like the 80s. He's just throwing weird like hooks, and people are just jumping. And like, I'm sorry, I've seen your other movies. You know how to direct action, you know how to kill people, and you just don't give a fuck.
He
so
checked out.
I agree
checked
with all
out.
these critiques, but would you guys say like this is a film you thought was just a chore to watch?
No.
No.
And I would say that about all of Carpenter's.
This
even
is
his bad
this is
movies.
a hungover Sunday TNT film.
and
you
I
know?
think like
How
in
is that a critique? I mean,
it's one of those like, yeah, you'd keep watching it when you're in that like, I don't want to move.
I may never watch
but
it again.
I found a stop to flipping
think that's
moment.
true.
and
I
then
think
I'm
you would
like,
watch it
I'm
again.
entertained enough to watch it when I got nothing. I'm trying to avoid.
I mean
doing
that to me
anything else.
is a pretty good movie.
Now I feel like I need to watch part 2 with John Bon Jovi.
I mean, that's how
I
I
don't
fell in
think you
love
need to
with.
watch
That's
that.
how I fell in love with Pootie Tang. So.
Oh my
Hey,
god!
All right, and
You
on
will no
that
longer
note,
get to critic anything else ever.
All right, moving on. Wait, Louis C.K. directed Pootie Tang.
Yeah, he did.
I'm aware.
Pootie
but
Tang is
still.
worthy of a revisit.
How did we go there? When did things go off the rails
Speaking
so
of
bad?
really terrible fucking
Wait,
movies.
I do want to say real quick, Gene Siskel called this one of the top 10 films of 1998.
Gene Siskel
placed it
loved
as
this
his
movie.
10th favorite film. He said...
Gene Siskel or was Ebert?
Gene Siskel.
Okay.
He said it was a high-action homage to westerns and classic horror that actually has a good story and a film that should put John Carpenter back on the map as a horror director and a film director in general. He gave it 4 stars out of 4 and expressed, of course, specifically that he was happy that it was a horror movie that had an all-adult cast and there were no teenagers.
I miss Gene.
I missed
Oh,
you.
and-
You took the words out of my mouth. I
And he
missed you, Gene
suggested that
Siskel.
James Woods should have been nominated for Best Actor.
He's great.
James
in
Wood
the
has some
movie.
great stuff in that movie.
Look, if I told you
He's
John
probably the
Carpenter
best
made
part.
a vampire hunter movie with James Woods, would you be like, no, I'm not going to watch that?
No, wait. If you told me John Carpenter in 1979 or 1984 made a vampire movie with James Woods, I'm all fucking in.
Oh,
Because
snap.
believe me, like there are moments of greatness in there that is John Carpenter. But there's so many other moments where he checked out
I agree.
that to me you can't sell me that when so many other things are a 10 out of 10.
I don't think this movie's perfect, but honestly...
But that's to me like
You're
my
right.
opinion is he is this man
I
up
think
here.
what you have to say is this is the distinction we're making is, yes, you're right, the film is not a success overall.
He's not my John Carpenter standard.
But is there enough great shit in there
That's
to
not
say,
my John
check
Carpenter.
yeah, there you go. It's not my John Carpenter.
Wow.
It's not my president.
So let's go to the one that, like, me and the Summers Brothers have been arguing about for literally like a month now because I think this film is a despicable piece
I think
of
it's
shit.
the worst thing I've ever seen
Like,
in my life.
Is this
And
fair?
that's-
You guys just start the review like that.
Sorry,
We haven't even
you guys
summarized
are
it.
like-
Objection, Your Honor.
Yeah,
Let
exactly.
me tell you about that.
Badgering the audience.
Once again, starting with John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars, because from here on out, everything's got to be John Carpenter. This film is such garbage. Part of the reason
You
is
can't tell me you
this-
guys liked this film.
This film was written,
I like this film.
This film was written originally as the third
Escape
Escape
from
from New
Mars,
York
yeah,
film. It was
Escape from
written as
Mars.
Escape from Mars, and Escape from LA was a ridiculously huge bomb, as it deserved to be because it's utter
Probably
shit.
Carpenter's worst movie.
And
Bruce Campbell's good in it, though.
the
For the
studio
5 seconds he's in
said,
it.
okay, let's rewrite this. Like, for those who don't know, Ice Cube's character, Desolation Williams, was originally going to be Snake Plissken. You know, how he ended up on Mars, whatever. It doesn't matter, thinking about it now. Although, originally, Jason Statham, when he was cast as the lead in that role.
And then the studio was
Strangely
like,
enough.
Jason Statham isn't a big enough,
If they
Star.
knew that.
They
big
were
enough
like-
star, so let's put Ice Cube.
At the time, Ice Cube was turning into they thought he was going to be
He
a
was
big
in
star.
Anaconda. Do I have to remind you
Hey,
people?
I
And Three
liked-
Kings.
I liked
Every time anyone
Anaconda.
says Anaconda, I just think of John Voight blinking at me with one eye. That's all I think
I
of.
liked Anaconda.
All right, moving on.
Moving
on.
Somebody summarize Ghosts of Mars.
You guys, because this is your movie, you love this. You're like,
is
I
stupid.
love this movie.
So John-
There are ghosts and they're on Mars. And that is the end.
Ghost, who doesn't want to see that? That's a great pitch. Basically, this is a flashback-filled film where
Holy
Natasha
shit.
Henstridge's character, who is part of a matriarchal society,
like we'd all been fooled into thinking she had talent of any kind other than her breasts.
She's attractive.
I didn't even get to
Very attractive.
I didn't even get to finish our
summation.
summary.
Sorry.
We interrupted with a
Forgot the fact
comment.
that she's a drug addict.
Sorry, you're right. Who was
Which is,
originally
again, a fascinating point that
who
John...
Courtney Love was originally cast as. until she
yes, I
broke her
remember
foot.
that. And she recounts a tale of how, in a futuristic society on Mars, they go to investigate a mining town where weird shit has happened, and they realize that the miners have unleashed an ancient Martian horror that inhabits people.
Did you say whore?
It's Courtney Love. That's where
And
she
horror,
comes in.
horror too. And they battle with that as they try to escape
And
the
I
miners.
want to see that movie.
Yeah.
I would like
I
to
think he
point
meant
out.
horde.
No, this film I saw in the theater,
Me too.
and my girlfriend at the time was so pissed off.
She
She
should've.
tried to break up with me in the parking lot of the movie theater.
That's how bad.
By the
this
way,
movie
she
is.
failed.
Wait. What's her name?
Can we do a shout out to this
It'd be
girlfriend?
weird if
No,
you,
we
like,
can't.
you're like,
Shout out
I'm married
to her, who is probably not watching, not listening to this podcast. But I would like to say, that said, this to me is the movie or the kind of movie that the Summers brothers over on this side of the couch greatly enjoy about John Carpenter. I feel like there's a lot of ideas. I feel like it's an entertaining movie. Is it the greatest movie of all time? No, it's not.
When
It's
you're in
not.
defense of
But it
this
is a movie I have watched over and over again, and there are several movies.
Was it in focus? Yes.
It was in focus. It was well lit.
That's what you're
It was
saying.
well edited. There was continuity.
Well edited. I mean, come on. There was literally a double, triple flashback.
Yeah.
I was like,
How is that bad?
The character in a flashback had another flashback.
Flashbacks to other shit.
I love that
part.
flashback.
All right.
so many, like literally,
All right,
that's
all
in my
right,
notes,
listen.
all caps. So
I'm gonna have to
many
consult my notes
flashbacks.
because I was prepared for you, asshole.
Oh boy.
Okay, so Russ said it had a lot of ideas, and I think that that's one of the things that's the down point of this movie is there's just too many ideas to the point where
Oh,
he,
that's-
Whoa, no,
that's
too
right.
many ideas.
Too
That's
many
terrible.
but it
I
was
don't
too
know if I
many
agree with
ideas.
that
I mean, it
either.
was to the point where he kind of lost track of his ideas that the plot suffered. I mean, the biggest plot hole.
Your plot suffered. How dare you?
The
This
biggest
is where we've
plot
devolved
hole is where they understand.
You're
okay,
the biggest plot hole.
Oh, God.
if we kill the people that are possessed by the ghosts, then the ghosts are going to infect other people, and so they continue to kill the people possessed by the ghosts.
You have to escape, though.
Oh, I'm
There's
sorry.
no other choice.
Can I just go ahead and
they
say it's...
literally kill everyone by
This is
getting
like
away.
the scene in South Park where they're like, everybody has the pink eye zombie thing. Don't go around and start chainsawing everybody, and they're chainsawing everybody.
But here's my problem with this again. It's John Carpenter regurgitating greatness to make a less good movie. It is, oh, look, somebody's...
That's not a thing that exists. I don't know what you're talking
Somebody's
about.
infected. Oh, we kill them. Oh, it goes to somebody else now. Oh, somebody else is infected. And then, I'm sorry, look at the end of Vampires. Oh, we're in a town. Oh, it's a ghost town. Where are they? Oh, they're in this building over here. It's the exact same premise and thing over and over and over again, and it gets worse every time. It's
At
a copy
least
of a copy of a
Vampires
copy
had
of a copy.
details of it that were still interesting. I can't think of anything about this movie that is interesting and doesn't feel regurgitated, half-assed, and
get
no
it all
effort
out.
put in.
Get it all
Even
out.
down to like the editing. There's points of like conversation between characters where there's gaps between dialogue where there clearly shouldn't be gaps between dialogue, especially with Ice Cube.
Oh, look.
who, let's face it, may be charismatic, but
Desolation.
isn't much of an actor.
Wait, Roger Ebert says it's the greatest movie of... No, he never said that. Sorry, we can't have that there.
I actually.
Russ is
No,
waiting right now.
I've got notes, but patience, finish what you're
Okay,
saying.
this is my final thoughts on
Yeah, no,
Ghosts of
please.
Mars. I feel like the original Ghosts of Mars, I would have liked to seen that screenplay. Because written for Escape from Mars with Snake Plissken, I feel like this is probably one of those things where they rewrote it so many damn times that we got this garbage that we have to this day, which doesn't make any sense. And I'm seriously, like, flashbacks? Come on. It's all flashbacks.
If
all the time.
NWA and Eazy-E were alive when this happened, I mean, they would have buried Ice Cube.
Very
Right.
true.
Otherwise,
Summer's
it still,
couch.
It still had. I'll tell you some things I liked about it, which is
please.
I liked the classic Carpenter self mutilation scenes.
Yeah.
That was classic Carpenter. I like that. I mean, self mutilation is kind of like one of the things that
I like
grosses me
Pam
out.
Grier.
Who's barely in it?
Pam Grier's great.
I liked Jason
Pam Grier.
Statham.
Now,
as
anybody
well.
given Pam Grier work at this point in her career when she was
Even
not
though
getting work?
I feel like
a
he
good
was
thing.
kind of misogynistic as well, Jason Statham.
But this
sort
was
of a
definitely
jerk.
the first vision of Statham going like, oh, this guy's going to be a star.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
you
true.
watch this, you're like, this guy's got more charisma than
He
everybody
doesn't
else
get
in
the
this
shine
film.
in the movie.
He only had Snatch under his belt, I think, at the time.
It was
that
the
this
first time I've ever
yeah.
seen Statham in a
Was
movie.
Snatch before this?
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
Snatch
It was.
the
Yeah.
first. Yeah, this is
I think
his
they're
second
almost the
film.
same year.
Wow,
but-
he dropped drastically then, because Snatch was a really good movie.
And good for him for getting.
But it was
a
his moving from a little British movie.
I'm just talking shit about this
We're
movie.
just talking shit.
I want to hear why you guys love it.
Yes,
Let's go
okay,
ahead.
now,
we all,
Russ-
we all love
Shut
bad
up.
movies,
And
guys.
we all agreed to be
Listen.
quiet
Yes,
while they try and
As
defend it.
Unleash the
Jules
Russ.
would say, allow me to retort. Bobster?
No,
Yeah,
you're
you're
like
like,
first. I got you on fire, and then I'm going to jump in.
Now I feel too much pressure.
No, you're okay.
I understand all these criticisms of the movie, but I guess to me, and as I've said earlier, I think it's a film of ideas. Do I think those ideas are executed, to the best extent? No, and certainly not in the Carpenter canon. But it's really great to see him return to some of the tropes that he has before. I feel like you're starting to see, a reference to Assault on Precinct 13, a reference to The Thing, a reference to, some of the other movies that we loved about Carpenter. And I think, is Ice Cube, perfectly cast in the film? No.
Desolation Williams.
As Desolation Williams. who's super sweet in the movie. And I feel like, again, a reference to some of the characters that we've seen in Assault on Precinct 13 and The Thing. So, I don't know.
Both of which are 10 out of 10.
But you know what?
This
you're
is like
right.
a 4.
Look,
We agreed.
Sorry.
Let the summers.
No, please.
I think you're right. But I do think there's no director who has every movie's great. And go ahead. No.
I'm just saying, like, no matter. I'm just saying.
Phil. No.
Well, all I'm going to say is,
yeah.
People, no matter how great their past movies are or whatever their catalog is, you still don't just get a pass if you make a piece of shit.
But I don't give the movie
I
a pass based on it being Carpenter. This is what I'm saying is that for the Summers Brothers, and I think like this is where, again, I think we probably mentioned this on other podcasts, is I want to see that you put some thought into it.
Yeah.
And I do think that so many movies that I watch, I thought, man, you just like it's like you're watching some Anton Fuqua movie like
Don't say Training Day.
No,
Don't
that's
say
his
Training
best
Day.
film.
Any film but Training Day.
Yeah,
by Anton
but I
Fuqua.
do think, I mean, you're watching like
King Arthur.
or Olympus Has Fallen, and you think like, you guys act like I've never seen this movie before, and everything in this movie I've seen before. You're obviously a talented person. You obviously can direct the crap out of stuff. But when I'm watching this, there's nothing I haven't seen in this movie before. Now you're right. Assault or Ghost on Mars has many references to other stuff, but it was. I felt like when I watched it, it is not a perfect movie, and it's. In fact, a lot of it's not great, and I understand. I think that when I watch it, I'm like, ooh, not perfect, but there's so many ideas. The flashback structure, which I understand you guys don't love, but there's flashbacks within flashbacks. It's an interesting structure for the film. Someone's narrating it, and there's flashbacks within that. The main character is a drug addict, which I think is a sort of fascinating, and it ends up there's a payoff to that, which not every movie would have. There's the sort of sci-fi horror thing. Desolation Williams, the team up with the. I love the stuff where you have to team up with the bad guy to kind of fight a bigger horror. And again, the matriarchal society,
that part was really
which
cool.
is a fascinating idea, and I think like
are both of those things you just said.
Yeah,
What?
I will.
I agree with both those things you just said.
And I think also, again, Carpenter, despite his best efforts to not put himself into the movie, are in there. This sort of unknowable horror that you encounter, and you're like, what are we going to do? And I think the ending's great. It ends the story, but you realize like the movie's over, but the story's not over. It is not, and I like Natasha Hendricks in the lead. I think she's fairly interesting. I think she's kind of. It's a little distracting.
I'm definitely glad it was her over Courtney Love.
Right, she's an actual actress,
I'll agree with that as well.
There's the bad guys are terrible. They look like Marilyn Manson sort of influenced terrible ripoffs. The set design, the bright lighting, it's not great. I agree with you guys on all those points as far as it. But when I am a fan of B movies, and this is a fucking B movie. If this thing came out,
so you like it because it's a bad movie?
No, kind of. But I think if this was no, but that's kind of the thing is that when you watch B movies, like horror movies, and I think like that's kind of what.
But John Carpenter's not a B movie director.
No,
but I don't totally agree with that.
But this is a guy who works in genre. He makes horror movies. He makes sci-fi movies. He makes movies that mainstream.
I feel like his downswing in his career just beat you down that you're accepting it.
No,
you're like a battered person over here. Like,
well,
I just accept it.
But Rob and I talked about this because what we talked about was certain directors, really great directors, make a movie at a certain point in their career, and it's so terrible it makes you reevaluate their career in terms of that film. And Carpenter has made films that are obviously do not live up to the standard of other parts of his filmography, but you still think those films are great in light of these other movies. And I Ghost of Mars, as problematic as it is, I still enjoy that movie on the level, or at least, on par with some of these other movies that he made earlier in his filmography.
And you know what? Actually, that's the thing about this podcast is that I didn't have to go back and rewatch most of these because I rewatch Carpenter movies all the time.
I do too.
And his movies are when you go like, what movie do you want to see? 9 times out of 10,
just not Ghost of Mars.
It's not Ghost of Mars.
Yeah.
But okay, so maybe not Ghost of Mars, but you would have to say out of this guy's filmography, how many directors make movies where you? I mean, like.
I remember the Summers brothers to love me 1/10 of the much that they love John Carpenter.
Yeah, but when you walk into my house, and Chris has been at the first movie poster you will see, and I have a bunch of fucking movie posters, is the fucking
He's
thing.
passionate.
I love this guy, and I
with
give a shit about, and his movies.
The movies I love by Carpenter,
like,
which are a lot of movies,
right.
I love to
when
the
you
point
when
where
you talk about
it's an emotional...
like the people that listen to this podcast, and you guys when you talk about what movie do you want to watch tonight, guaranteed 9 times out of 10 it's a Carpenter-like film or a film that's been influenced by John Carpenter. I remember Russ, like, there was one weekend and Russ goes like, I was like, what movie did you watch? And he was like, well, I went to go see Birdman and I went to go see John Wick. And he was like, what'd you think of Birdman? He goes, Birdman is sort of avant-garde, sort of daring cinema. But John Wick is why I go to the movies. And I feel that way about John Carpenter. Like, B movies, like sci-fi movies with like big ideas about society, outsiders, humanity, evil. That's what I want to see when I go to the fucking movies, and John Carpenter is that guy.
I almost feel like we should rap because that was such a passionate monologue.
But we have to at least, and we are admittedly skipping past the Masters of Horror episode.
Yeah.
Because I know Philip didn't get to see him.
But you should watch Cigarette Burns with Norman Reedus' giant mole that we all forgot he had when he was a kid.
Shit!
Yeah.
Seriously,
Dude,
did we all forgot that Norman Reedus had a giant mole?
For real.
I feel like Cigarette Burns is kind of a companion piece to In the Mouth of Madness.
It should be.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think... No, Cigarette Burns in and of itself is
so
pretty
weird
good.
Because a podcast that I don't follow, but was posted on my page today, they reviewed Cigarette Burns. Or please go watch Cigarette Burns. And I was like, actually, I would go watch Cigarette Burns.
You know what?
Not the pro-life.
No, but just following up all the stuff.
Yeah,
it's like the next movie we're talking about is The Ward, right? Mm-hmm. The Ward actually looks like a fucking movie.
It is his most modern looking film.
It looks like a movie. You look at vampires,
and that guy went on. Yeah,
Village of the Damned, Ghosts of Mars.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even it hurts my eyes just to the looks of them. Don't even stand up to what his early if you were to ask me, what are your top Carpenters? I'm like, Assault on Precinct 13, Big Trouble in Little China, The Thing. Halloween.
None of which are
I love They Live.
Though,
we didn't even talk about They Live, did we? Were we talking
it's
about
not horror.
We were
talking
not.
about
No,
we chose to skip past
I was
that.
outvoted.
Yeah.
I thought that
we
They
decided
Live.
that was a sci-fi.
But point being is all those are pre 1987.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about The Ward is...
It looks good.
Yeah, no, it feels and still feels like a Carpenter movie direction-wise.
I actually disagree. I thought that it was a very tame version of Carpenter. I thought it was extremely toned down. Even though it's still rated R, I actually had to look it up because I was like, is this PG-13? Because... I mean, it didn't feel like it had that Carpenter sort of darkness to it.
It doesn't even look like a Carpenter film, and that's partially because it's the first film he has not shot in Panavision
and
with
the
his beloved his look since his first movie Dark Star. I mean, he really went to a cheaper format because he kind of had to.
But I will say it looked better than his last 3 movies.
I agree. It's a much slicker looking film,
That's
but it's
true.
also a much less personal looking film.
It doesn't have his score, which he said, "Well, I'm just."
And that hurts the movie a lot. But
I forgot to talk about the score of Ghosts of Mars. Oh my god, Anthrax and Steve Vai. We totally forgot about the metal.
It's not good. I'm not going to defend that. I want to hear his synthesizer score. I want to hear.
The Summers Forgot prosecution had that evidence in stock.
I feel like the Ward.
We give you that part of the case.
Thank you.
We throw it.
As far as the Ward goes, it's a little hard on the Beaver.
Whoa.
Had that chambered up.
That was...
Chris thought that last night. He was lying to me. He's like, I got an idea.
Amber Heard's in this movie. Where is the Beaver? Amber Heard, she gets naked in every movie, but not this one.
Heard is...
How is this rated R?
Heard is an underrated actress. I think she's really good in the movie. And surprisingly, I remember Jared Harris shows up and I'm like, whoa.
Great
the
actor.
acting is sort of elevated. I think probably the worst person is Meryl Streep's daughter,
Mamie Gummer?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Sadly, I just feel like maybe
Danielle
she's great.
Pennebaker is great. Who's now stars on
and
The
it has a few things that are somewhat
consecutive.
non-characteristic Carpenter. There's a great scene where the girls all dance to the radio.
Yeah.
He doesn't normally have sort of
very un-Carpenter.
Yeah, it's very whimsical, somewhat light. Not like a lot of his movies, and I really like that moment.
I feel like this movie, if it had been made 15 years beforehand, we'd go, that's a pretty solid Carpenter.
Yeah.
film.
100%, but the twist was already done 100
Had
times
been
by
done
now.
like so
It's
many
a
times.
really
And actually, I think he actually got accused of that in a lot of his reviews of this film. Was like, okay, we all know what movie you're sort of ripping off.
Right.
This is very much in line with his Masters of Horror stuff, where you can feel him sort of like making
homages.
Yeah, well, and I think like when you watch the Master of Horror stuff, there's nothing particularly original or fantastic about them. They're very much TV episodes. This feels very much like a VOD movie. I think if you took Carpenter's name off of it, I would not have pegged him as the director in the way that I would.
But that being said,
Again, it didn't have the darkness.
as
that he
much of
brings
like
to a lot of
uninspired
his films.
things that are in this, there is stuff I think he brings to it that elevates it beyond what someone else would have done with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think The Ward is a terrible movie.
I agree. I like that it's like vintage,
But-
like it's set in the past.
Yeah.
I liked the vintage.
Yeah,
feel.
yeah.
That was a cool thing.
It's not even a new take on an old twist, but it's a competent take on
It's
an
sort
old
of a
twist.
very. It's like it's honestly like I have to kind of compare it to food. Like, do I think this is like a gourmet, like amazing, specific sort of beautiful meal? No, but like if you said like this is like a really good hamburger, like you're like it's not special or whatever, but somebody brings it to you like, well, it's better than I thought, but it's not great. And if
Yeah.
you didn't tell me he was the chef,
That's
I
actually
wouldn't
a good
know.
analogy.
You know,
But you know what? This is like the kind of thing where like you're looking for a horror movie to watch that night. You know, like I don't think it's going to be great.
I don't know. I mean, I saw this on Netflix a while ago, and I had to rewatch it last night because I seriously
It's
couldn't
unmemorable.
remember.
I couldn't remember.
a
I
damn
exact
thing about
and
it.
actually, I remembered liking it better. Like I think I was probably the lone defender the first time I watched
watched
it.
it when it first came out.
Yeah, watching
but I
it
just
now is
couldn't.
kinda like,
I was
eh.
like, I can't remember anything.
I had never seen it. I watched it recently, and I was like assuming it was just going to be awful, and maybe that's why I was more of a sort of like, it wasn't that bad.
'Cause you had low
Because I was
expectations.
expecting it to be the worst piece of shit ever after watching Ghosts of Mars literally right before it, which is the worst piece of shit
Yeah.
ever. Sorry.
I feel like...
But it is. But I went, like, like, Ghosts of Mars, I feel like, has all these issues that are intrinsic with problems with filmmaking in and of itself. Like, big
Agreed.
filmmaking
Yeah,
problems.
that's what
I
I
didn't
think,
really
too.
find any of those problems in The Ward. It's a competently made but unremarkable movie.
I did like Jared Harris, though. I really
He's
liked
great.
him
I
a
think the
lot.
acting in this movie is pretty good, and I do think it's a well shot film. Like
For sure.
Bill was saying, like if this was the way my movie looked, I'd be really proud. I'd be like, wow. And I
You
think
could watch this movie 30 years from now and it would still hold up.
And the direct, and I
How'd
think the
that
DP
happen?
went
Yeah.
on to do some big
Especially doing
stuff.
a
Like I think
vintage.
he's shooting the Path now for Hulu and
Which
stuff.
is a great show.
Yeah,
And
so
great-looking
he's a
show.
really. And I think the actresses are really terrific. It's just unfortunate. I think it's a somewhat subpar script. It's just like it's fine. It's like kind of feels like again like in line with like a half-hour TV show.
I'm just curious why Carpenter was interested. After
Amen.
10 years
Yeah.
of being retired, why he was pulled out to do
That
this.
is
Here's-
actually a good
I
question.
haven't found a solid answer for that.
I mean, I feel like I'm just going to kind of like sum up my outro of what we're talking
Yeah.
about, just because I feel like it all
Yeah,
ties
we are
into what
into
we're...
the outro.
Yeah.
It kind of ties into what's going on right here. Like I saw this at a festival years ago. I had a movie playing and it played after mine, and I saw it and I didn't even fucking remember it, and I had to watch it again. And when you think about John Carpenter, I think about these movies that he had early on in the mid to late 70s, early 80s. And these things really changed the scope of what horror and what sci-fi and what really good thriller was. And then I saw a man beat down by the studio system, by what box office numbers do to you, by a lot of things. And I saw him start taking jobs and start not caring as much. And yes, there's still moments of genius to what he does. And it's great that people still champion the little moments that still exist of him in his movies. But those moments are now few and far between when you come to like what his great movies are to what he's doing now. And I don't know whether it's being burnt out, whether it's just he just smokes too much pot because he's known to be a pretty big burnout.
At this
and
point,
he smokes
he's
a lot.
dedicated to his son Cody.
Yeah.
who he's just following around on tour, helping him with his music career.
And to me, it's one of those things where I don't know what it comes down to. Whether it's you're just hiring him, he's like, fuck it, I'll take a job. But to me, I look forward to the day when I see John Carpenter from 1978 to 1987 show back up and make a movie and give a fuck again, because I think he's still there. I want to hope he's still there, but to me, there's just definitely a big fall off. And I mean, he's going to be one of the top 10 horror directors in all time, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But shit, there's so many things in there that I'm
There's
like,
a lot of people that get
disappointed
in
with.
horror the title, King
Excellent
of Horror,
summary.
and most of them have maybe 2 or 3 films that are even worth
And not even a
noting.
horror. Think of Big Trouble in Little China,
know?
Assault on Precinct 13, Escape from New York.
Starman.
Starman, yeah, They Live. I mean,
who has that filmography?
exactly.
Fucking nobody.
The guy can go do,
How many people are trying
Yeah.
to just remake or influenced by his films? I mean,
Dude,
look
even
at-
his really solid Elvis film with Kurt Russell.
That's
really
right, yeah.
solid film.
yeah, but I mean, you're talking about. I
So
mean, you're
good.
talking about his influence. Like, you're talking about movies like. I mean, how many movies have been made? I was trying to make the list here, but Hateful Eight. Quentin Tarantino is remaking John Carpenter movies. Like, basically, Hateful Eight takes the structure of The Thing.
Rob Zombie.
Rob Zombie. But you're talking about, The Nest, Dread, Planet Terror. I mean,
The Void.
The Void. I mean,
Void.
this guy's influence is so far-reaching. The Guest. I mean,
Definitely The Guest, yeah.
Everybody
I loved
is
The
ripping
Guest.
off this guy. They want to use his font. They want to use his score. They take his Assault on Precinct 13 ideas. Like, this guy's reach in cinema is as big as someone like Kurosawa or Lucas or
Right.
Spielberg.
We talk about 70s auteurs
I even think more
and,
so.
and the footprint, and I feel like, Carpenter to me, because he makes genre movies, gets sort of placed beneath someone like Scorsese or Coppola or, I mean, I guess De Palma, which is sort of in the same range. But he is every bit as influential and important as those 70s auteurs. And his influence now, I think the kinds of things that he was doing with genre movies and rethinking cinema storytelling is the cinema that we're living in right now.
Yeah.
And people are making $100 million movies based on the kinds of things that Carpenter was thinking of 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
That's real quick. If they had like some way to calculate how much money has been made based off influence,
Yeah.
Carpenter would have the record.
Dude,
for sure.
director, writer,
100%.
composer.
That's why it's like Kurosawa, sure, great. Look at like influence and what people actually want to watch today. It's like it's not.
No,
it's
he's
Carpenter.
acting ability away from being called an auteur.
Yeah,
And I think the thing that was really great about Carpenter was it was unapologetic. He made genre movies. He was interested in horror. He was interested in science fiction. He was interested in action. He was interested in the kinds of things that all of us love about movies. And he didn't say like, "Oh, I'm making this character thing, but it has horror in it." No, he was making a horror film, and I think that's the thing that I really love about John Carpenter.
And I totally agree with Russ 100%. And this is probably my final thought on Carpenter is that, yeah, he actually took that idea of horror and made it something that was esteemed. Before John Carpenter, or I mean, at least in a retrospective of John Carpenter, like before him, everyone's like, oh, horror, that's not a valid genre. It's lowbrow. It doesn't deserve to be like recognized in any way. And then we look back on some of his work, like Halloween and The Thing, and you're just like, he made it so that it was okay to like horror and still like good films.
I mean, I put him up there with someone like Hitchcock. Like, I just think, like, Hitchcock worked in genre. Like, that's what he made. He made thrillers. He made suspense films. He made horror films. And Carpenter is that guy. And I think that he used that to talk about bigger ideas that matter to all of us. And, despite, I think, where he misses the mark, and, man, that guy can definitely
when
make
he
some...
misses the mark,
he does.
He misses
the mark.
fucking mile.
But this is the most important thing to me about him. If you ask me what movie do I want to watch tonight, and most movies, if it was that or a John Carpenter movie that I've already seen, I'm more likely to want to watch the John Carpenter movie. That's just how I feel about him. Like, I'm gonna get more out of that. Yeah. Like you're like Chris is rewatching all of these horror movies. I'm following him on Facebook, and he's like, I'm rewatching this. But imagine if I said, hey, I got this John Carpenter movie, and you've never seen it.
I'd be
and
like,
it's
I'll
awesome.
watch it right
You'd be
now.
like, I want to watch that next.
It would go at the
because
top of my
that's
list.
the kind of director, filmmaker, creator, artist that John Carpenter is. And I just think like,
I think the word was.
But you're right. Maybe he was.
But that's a tragedy of what happened in the reception.
But you're talking about. I mean, we could say that about a lot of films. You could say that about Wim Wenders. You could say that about a million brilliant.
You could say that about Stephen King.
You could say that about a lot of people.
Carpenter was a man of his time and ahead of his time. We said in the first half how he was Lucas, he was Spielberg. He was doing the exact same thing they were doing, just for a niche that wasn't what they were doing. But it was that same type of passion, affection, and ability to bring to the modern age what they were doing, that same quality of talent, and yet it was always the rest of us just weren't quite there yet. We weren't quite ready to treat the genres he wanted to treat with reverence. And it wasn't until 10 years later that everyone went, "Oh wow, that was actually fucking."
But he thinks of himself. But I think if you ask what filmmaker,
his career.
He thinks of himself as someone like Howard Hawks. He thought of himself as someone who churned out these sort of like I'm making a picture, man. I'm making a picture. It's like a horror movie. It's like a sci-fi movie. It's like a thriller. It's like whatever. And he thought of it that way. But he can't help but bring a lot of big ideas to that.
Yeah.
And so I think for that he should be celebrated. And honestly, man, like. I just want to watch that guy's movies, man. I love that guy's movies. I think about that guy's movies all the time. Russ and I, whenever we're making a sci-fi movie or a horror movie, we're like, well, we got to go back and watch that John Carpenter scene. How did he do that? How did he?
John Carpenter's world. We just live in it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nice. Perfect ending to the
I hope it's not John Carpenter's world I'm living
Not
in.
the
That's
Apocalypse
horrifying.
Trilogy.
Maybe
It's better than Cronenberg, goddammit.
Yeah, that's probably true. Side note, if you like Carpenter, one of his latest projects is the Lost Themes albums.
Yeah.
He composed original music that was, I guess, some of it was based on new stuff. But if you haven't checked it out, great shit. And he performed it live. I guess that's his new thing now. We went to go see it. Total nerd fest. It was awesome.
And he has 2 comic books that he is currently writing with Deborah Hill, longtime co-producer of his films. Asylum.
No, she passed away, though.
I forget what the other one is.
So it must have been based on her ideas.
Okay, maybe based on her ideas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I forget what the second one is, but I know Asylum's on there, but they're currently running. So.
Okay.
I've not read either one, but I would love to pick up collection volumes
Google
of them.
it.
I mean, how many comic writers have been influenced by John Carpenter?
Oh, half of them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
of
At least
them?
not three-quarters. But thank you guys for listening to Deliberations of Doom. Our next show, which we were still consulting about, sounds like maybe we're going to do like the lesser-known vampire films that you should totally see, but we're still arguing.
Yeah.
That's next. But
Who would have guessed we're arguing about something?
But please let your friends who love horror movies know about our show. Put the links out there. We really appreciate it. And also check out these guys' stuff. Once again, Patience, you have a short story out in...
Dark Gothic Resurrected magazine.
There you go. Phil, you have a movie that is...
Dead Awake comes out May 12th in theaters and on demand.
Indeed. And the Summers Brothers...
Yeah, you can check out our stuff on grandscheme.net and follow our adventures on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Snapchat.
Snapchat. Also check out, if you're a Snapchat fan, follow... Oneofus.net.
Oneofus.net, which I'll try to do stuff. Or if you already follow my Facebook page, you can watch the Summers Brothers give me shit on almost everything I post. Thank you, everyone, and keep screaming.
Woo!